Well, I honestly thought that this couldn't get any worse, but I was wrong. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Don't mind the frizz, okay? I haven't straightened my hair, all right? So I just listened to, I guess, the full episode of Nancy Grace's take and interview when it comes to this Howard Blume book. Blum, whatever. I don't understand how she can sit there and act like these are facts. Like the little 4.5 to 5 minute clip was bad enough. This entire 45 minutes almost is her acting as if he has cracked the case, that he is literally spewing out court fact information, true evidence. Man, they even tried to make Linda Lane sound like it was admissible. We're going to go through a couple of the little things. I'm not going to play none of it because I just can't deal with listening to her while I'm editing this video. So I'm just not going to do it. If you want to go and hurt your ears, then you can go over there to her channel. But I'm just going to tell you what my issues were with this, because this is extremely ridiculous. And there's a lot of things in here that they're not considering, okay? The first thing that she starts talking about, she sort of touched on it in that little clip, but she talks about how she was down there and she drove the route in an SUV or whatever, and she starts talking about the drive and how it's only X amount of time, the travel distance between, but it took him this amount of time because he went this way and that way and everywhere else. Okay, but that's just what the probable cause states. And we've learned from what Payne himself has stated, the author of this exhibit for arrest, okay, that the footage of the places that is needed doesn't really exist. And the footage that they do have for things is the wrong day, or it's the wrong time of day. It's during the daytime and not the nighttime. Everything else is all just guessing. It's all just guessing. Now, something that Howard claims to have knowledge of are things that he would not have knowledge of. And the ones that really drive me the most insane that he's trying to act as if are true facts are the fact, and this can go both ways, okay? I'm going to preface that, okay? That the FBI still, in this point in time, has not been able to identify who was driving the car, okay? I have said that because that's what we know this far. But he is in this interview stating to this day they haven't. To this day they haven't found the weapon. To this day they haven't found any bloody clothes. To this day this, as if he knows for a fact, okay? When we discuss it on here, we talk about it as if the probable cause was written with them claiming they could not see the person driving the vehicle. There was no identifying marks on the vehicle that they have in the probable cause affidavit to validate and verify 1,000 million octillion % that it was Bryan. He is claiming to this day they have not. Okay, do you know that for sure? Because with the gag order, ain't nobody telling you anything about no to this day. So that could, like I said, that could go either way for the prosecution or the defense. I just don't understand how he's able to come out here and literally concrete these things down like they're fact. And this whole panel, minus Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough seems to not like Howard, and his disgust for the conversation with him, you can tell. It's interesting. As she's talking about this drive, that's irrelevant because, like I just stated, they don't have any proof that that's actually the route. That's just one of many various possibilities that Payne came up with as he was making up a story from everybody else's knowledge and education, because everyone else did his work for him. He said so on the stand. And they're going on and on about how this is mainly written from the point of view of Michael Kohberger, who's Bryan's father. And again, they're talking about how this trip was done because he was worried about his son. Well, apparently it's been knowledge for a super long time that this was planned way ahead of time. Something that Howard Blume would know if he was actually talking to people that know things, because the actual attorney for Bryan before he was switched back to Idaho came out and said so. This wasn't like a last minute situation. This stuff had been planned. The tickets had been pre-bought. So I don't know why they're trying to make it sound as if it's something that it's not, because that's not the case. Literally, factually at all. And it's interesting the way that Nancy sort of describes it. She's like, in the book, you can literally sit there and feel the tension between father and son in that car and that cross-country road trip. No, you can't. You can feel what the freaking fantasy writer that's writing this fictional story wants you to feel. But you don't know how that ride was. You don't know what the tension was, if there was any at all. And she's literally sitting there saying stuff. Those were the exact words spoken. Chick, how do you know? How do you know? Howard Blume, whatever, has literally never talked to Michael Kohberger. He's never talked to anybody in Bryan Kohberger's family. Okay. He said so himself that the information that came from this are from people who know these people. Understand? People who know these people. Same thing that goes whenever the information was getting back to Steve about what was going on from Brat. And then Brat would get Steve's reaction and get information from Steve and relay it over to Howard, even though Steve didn't want to talk to Howard. It's all of these third-party people giving Howard information, but he's not going in and validating any of these things or facts. The same way that a judge doesn't go in and validate that there's facts on a probable cause affidavit for arrest or search. They just trust that the work is right and sign off on it, which is pretty much what Howard seems to have done for like his entire career, pretty much. They talk about how he kicked addiction and how his personality and stuff changed after he lost a lot of weight. Well, that's pretty normal. Like they're acting as if it's a bad thing, but that's pretty normal. And there's a guy out here on YouTube. I believe his channel name is still Truth Nation Uncensored. And it's a guy named Willie that knew Bryan's mother and father from them working in the school district whenever he was a student. He's a few years older than Bryan, I believe. I think that he was in high school whenever Bryan was in middle school, or maybe it was flipped around, one of the two. But he knew Bryan whenever he was bigger and whenever he was doing stupid stuff, and then also knew of him and knew how he was after the fact. So whenever it comes to like, oh, they didn't like the way his behavior changed, do you mean that his addict friends didn't like how he no longer wanted to do heroin? Because that's pretty much like the only thing that really changed according to everyone else. So they're making it sound as if it's something bad, but in reality, he wanted to be smarter. He wanted to get good grades. He wanted to be healthy. And they're making it sound as if him getting clean and wanting to be better and start on a better path was some sort of horrible obsession disorder that also led to his obsession with whoever the victim was here, whoever the target was here. Like everything that they're saying is making no sense. Because if there wasn't a murder in question, nobody would be saying any of these things. Like literally at all. There would be no reason to. Just like I really question, oh yeah, he gave me a creepy vibe, or oh yeah, I just really didn't like that guy. There was just something about him. How accurate those things really are, because what would the story be if it was, oh, he saved a baby from drowning in a pool, instead of, oh, he's a possible suspect in a quadruple homicide? Would you still be getting them creepy vibes, or would you have had like nothing but good things to say? I don't trust people that get in front of cameras and talk about these kind of things, because most of them are literally just going to go along with the rhetoric. That's why you can't trust anything you see, hear, literally anything. Blume makes it really clear that the only reason why he believes Maddie might be the target is because Kaylee wasn't living there. And his story is based on if Bryan Kohberger is the only guy. And that whole thing is because Kaylee wasn't living there anymore. She'd basically been at her parents' house for a while. And Maddie was still in that area. And she was at a vegan restaurant. And we were told Bryan was vegan. So he would have never like really interacted with Kaylee, but definitely would have interacted with Maddie for things that haven't really actually been validated or verified. Now, the only thing that I do agree with him on in this aspect, because he does mention the fact that in the courts, they've now claimed no stalking and there's no connection between the victims. Well, good points were made. And you know that I talk about all sides here, right? Good points were made about how, with him being a criminology student and having been studying this stuff for so long, he would know to go after somebody that he could sort of like get to the ending of whatever he wanted with without it being apparent that he knew them. So, of course, pick somebody in another town opposite to your school in your area. Of course, pick somebody who you don't have conversations with, or you don't share places or people with, who you don't have on social media. Of course, pick somebody random. And I mean, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense. But it doesn't actually make a lot of sense for what their narrative is here, which is what we talked about in other videos. The timeline doesn't work for what they're telling us. Their timeline, the police timeline of one person, manual weapon, all of these surprise things, a guy spending the night who doesn't live there, Kaylee being back that doesn't live there anymore, meaning also an animal now in the home that wouldn't be there on any other night. Then we also have the DoorDash magically showing up at the exact same time that this is apparently happening. Okay. You take all of those factors and you make it make sense. You can't make it make any sense unless the person would have been just like so ready to go that it just didn't matter, because that happens all the time. We're going to go over a story where nothing mattered what difference was. These people would just like walk into houses wanting to take someone's life, not even knowing who was living there. They just know that they wanted to go and put their hands around somebody's neck. And that's what they wanted to go do. No matter who it was, they were walking into a house and just doing it. Man, woman, child, elderly person, didn't matter. Didn't matter. So there are cases where that is the scenario. That's why whenever they're sitting here and they're literally like, Bryan went in through the sliding glass door and then he went up the stairs to the third floor. Bryan did this and Bryan did that. I'm just like, how can they sit here and actually say those things without saying like the suspect or allegedly? They're literally saying it as if they're telling a narrative of a finalized story. We don't even have a trial date. Literally. Maybe we won't even have one tomorrow. Who really knows what's going to happen? He's also trying to claim that Dylan and Bethany being left alone is all the proof he needs to prove that there was a target in the first place. Okay, well then explain Xana and Ethan and Kaylee. Explain that. Explain one person being able to overcome all four and all these things happening within like an 8-ish minute window. And again, I'm going to say this. Whatever vehicle is moving around the area that is in that probable cause exhibit, that vehicle is driving around while Dylan is hearing all of these things going on inside of the house, while things are being picked up on the camera. That car is still moving. So again, their own narrative, the narrative that this book is being written off of, the narrative that Nancy Grace is going all crazy about because she drove the route, none of it's relevant. It's all just fantasy. None of it's real. None of it. Now, again, they're talking about how this is a party house and the only motive there really seemed to have been was like jealousy over their lifestyle. And instantly I was just like, okay, for two men that don't speak, Howard and Steve sure sound exactly alike. So I wonder how their little theories on that became so similar whenever they want nothing to do with each other. Because there's an entire episode of Steve talking to some station and he's driving Kaylee's car around. And that's what he says was that Bryan was jealous of Maddie and Kaylee. And that's why he did all this stuff. But then on top of that, Blume sits there and acts like, oh, he wanted to be one of the cool kids. He wanted to party with the cool kids. He wanted to live that life. Okay, but he's at a pool party, hanging out by the pool, rocking it out with his slicked back hair and his shorts, getting chicks' numbers back and forth, and he's jealous of a life that he could obviously live? You see how none of it makes any sense? They contradict themselves. They say one thing, and then whenever they move on to like another time frame or another situation, another event, another scenario, it's a contradiction to what they said previous. They don't even see it. This is where they tried to make Linda Lane a thing, and I just cannot even understand. I actually took the video and tagged Joe Scott Morgan, the body bags guy, on Twitter because he follows me for some strange reason, which is cool, I guess. And I basically was like, Linda Lane is not admissible. It was either stolen or bought from the apartment owner, and the audio is manipulated. I don't understand why this is being talked about on this show. So, since Nancy Disgrace has me blocked, maybe Joe Scott will see it and realize I cannot believe we're talking about Linda Lane on this show whenever it's complete boo-boo. Okay. Now, if we ever got the actual true unedited raw footage, it might be worth looking at just to hear what's going on at certain time frames. But knowing that it's been manipulated, knowing that 1,000 people have had their hands in it, you can't trust a damn thing. And if there was admissible evidence running around, that'd be a huge problem, wouldn't it? They couldn't just allow this gag order to continue the way that it is without correcting that problem or addressing that problem. They would have to. No one said anything. So whenever they started talking about the footage and stuff, Nancy Grace was like, how do we know that it was confirmed that Bryan Kohberger circled the house 3 times before he went in the house? You know how they're claiming that's been verified? The gas station car. Yeah, a gas station that was all the way over there. What is it, like almost 2 miles away? The gas station footage is the validation confirmation proof that that car circled the King Road house in the neighborhood, as like the PCA states. So how the hell is a gas station 2 miles away that doesn't even have peripheral view on the freaking King Road house? How is that how you're going to validate that? Where are their brains? The fact that she was an actual lawyer, that she literally had like people's lives in her hands, that is such a scary thought. I know that I can get like a little animated with my hands and like I can get a little bit like up there, but the way her eyes are just constantly like popped open and there's something wrong there. Okay. I'm not going to even try to get into details about all the things that my brain wants to say, but there's something wrong there. All right. I don't understand how the logic isn't there. The common sense isn't there literally at all. It all just like went where? Where? But once she was like, oh, yes, the gas station. And then, oh, now we have a security camera on top of the apartment complex. Are you serious? That's your validation? A car that can't even be proven to be the same car on things that are 2 miles apart from each other that have nothing to do with each other, probably? Brian Inton is the only person that told us anything about that gas station car. Now, the last thing that I want to say, and this shook me for a minute, and I know that he doesn't have correct information. Okay, we've validated that in our own, brains at least, that everything that Howard Blume is doing is pure fictional fantasy. And honestly, the way that he talks, I really am curious as if he is like really sort of like internalizing his own boo-boo with the way that he's doing all this. Seriously. Okay. Sorry, I just couldn't handle it anymore. So he sits there and he literally says that the first bolo that went out was for a Nissan Sentra. Now, I could have sworn I heard something similar to that, and it was either in one of these little videos I watched today, or it was whenever I went over the interview that he did on the Drunk Turkey Show. But he mentioned something like that before. But then I started thinking again, and I remember there was some sort of like really strange Freudian slip when it came to something that Steve Goncalves said too. I don't know where it was, but we all heard it. We discussed it. Okay. Then where else did we hear about the Nissan Sentra? The Pullman pullover, where Brian was getting pulled over by that female cop. Okay. She gave dispatch the information from Brian's vehicle. And whenever the dispatch lady came back over the radio, she was telling the lady cop that it came back to like a Nissan Sentra. I'm pretty positive that she said Sentra. I'm 1,000% sure she said Nissan. And it threw everybody for a loop. But then it was like corrected. Like we heard her corrected on the audio. So that's been already strange, considering the fact that we've had 2 different year links worth of the actual Elantra information put out. So the way that Howard is putting it is that it was first a Nissan Sentra, and then it came out with the original time frame for the Elantra, and then all of a sudden the FBI had to change it, and here came the second one. So you're telling me, if that's true, that they originally were going to have us looking for a whole completely different vehicle than the one that we're hearing now, and both of those vehicles still happen to have some sort of strange connection to Bryan Kohberger? Sorry, not sorry. That's freaking strange. I don't know if we're ever going to get validation on that. Because nowhere ever in the public were we ever told to look for a freaking Nissan. Literally ever. Nothing I can remember. And I could have like literally lost a complete day. I don't freaking know. PTSD does crazy things. Did you guys ever hear of a bolo for a Nissan Sentra in this case? He also tries to state that the feds didn't have like technology that was up to snuff. Okay, well then why would they have gone in and snatched the case away from Othram? If Othram has technology when it comes to the DNA stuff, why did they not allow them to take over if the FBI's equipment isn't up to par? And what are our taxpayer dollars paying for if their equipment isn't up to par? I'm over it. This is so stupid. And the crazy part is that this is just like part 1 of what Nancy plans to do. Apparently tomorrow there's going to be a part 2. So I guess at some point after the hearing, it's going to air, but I wonder if it's going to be recorded after the hearing. I guess we'll find out. Let me know if you guys watched this video. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I knew that I could not help myself because of how ridiculous their information is. And I just cannot believe that they can sleep at night. I just can't. But that's it, you guys. If you guys like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please do not forget to leave a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. See y'all.